Officer Thomas Garrett had been with the Denver Police Department for 11 years when he pulled over a car that was driving 58 in a 45 zone on the way to Denver General Hospital, a decision that would destroy his career and cost the city $73 million. He was 38 years old, experienced enough to recognize a medical emergency, but apparently convinced that his authority superseded basic human decency and medical necessity. One Thursday evening in September, on a stretch of Highway 3 miles from Denver General, he saw a black woman driving urgently toward the hospital and assumed she was lying about being in labor, running from something or trying to avoid a ticket. What Garrett did next, ignoring visible signs of active labor, dismissing her medical credentials, and arresting her as she experienced crowning, would become a case study in how racial bias and power, drunk policing can torture an innocent person and devastate a family. A black woman in her mid-30s, Dr. Maya Richardson, was gripping her steering wheel with white knuckles, her abdomen contracting violently beneath her seatbelt as she tried to reach the hospital, where she delivered hundreds of babies over the past decade. Her hospital badge hung from the rearview mirror. Her overnight bag sat packed in the back seat. No crime, no threat, no danger, just a physician trying to safely deliver her first child. But Officer Garrett saw her through a filter so distorted by assumptions about who tells the truth and who deserves compassion that he couldn't process a black woman in active labor as someone who desperately needed help. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Interstate 25 northbound cuts through Denver like a concrete artery, connecting the southern suburbs to downtown. At 6:38 p.m. on a Thursday in late September, the highway was busy but moving. Commuters heading home, families going to dinner, the usual evening traffic flow. The weather was clear, temperature dropping as the sun set over the Front Range, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Denver General Hospital sat 3 miles north, visible from certain points on the highway, its distinctive glass tower catching the fading light. For Dr. Maya Richardson, that building represented safety, medical care, the place where she'd planned every detail of her daughter's birth. Her OB-GYN colleagues were waiting for her. Her delivery room was ready. Her birth plan was filed. Everything was arranged. But 3 miles might as well have been 300 when Officer Thomas Garrett activated his lights behind her silver Honda Accord at precisely 6:38 p.m. The lights flashed red and blue in her rearview mirror. Maya glanced down at her speedometer, 58 Mundif, and realized with sinking dread that she was 13 miles over the limit. She'd been so focused on timing her contractions, breathing through the pain, keeping the car steady despite the waves of agony radiating through her abdomen, that she hadn't noticed her speed creeping up. She put on her hazard lights and began slowing down, looking for a safe place to pull over. But even as she did, another contraction hit, massive, overwhelming, the kind that makes your entire body lock up. She gripped the wheel tighter, trying to breathe, trying to focus, trying to get to the shoulder before the pain made it impossible to drive. Dr. Maya Richardson had been an OB-GYN at Denver General Hospital for 11 years. 11 years of delivering babies in every imaginable circumstance, planned home births that needed emergency transport, precipitous deliveries in hospital hallways, high-risk pregnancies requiring surgical intervention, twins, breech presentations, shoulder dystocia, and everything in between. She'd delivered over 2,000 babies in that time. She'd held mothers' hands through 40-hour labors and celebrated with families when their children arrived safely. She'd made split-second decisions that saved lives and performed emergency C-sections in situations where minutes mattered. Her colleagues called her unflappable. Her patients called her the doctor who never panicked. Maya had graduated summa cum laude from Howard University, then completed medical school at Johns Hopkins, where she'd published research on reducing maternal mortality in underserved communities. She'd completed her OB-GYN residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the most competitive programs in the country, where she'd been named chief resident in her final year. After residency, she'd clerked for a federal judge while completing a joint JD program at Harvard Law School, focusing on medical malpractice law and patient rights. She'd passed the Colorado bar exam on her first attempt. She was board certified in obstetrics and gynecology and had testified as an expert witness in multiple medical malpractice cases. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists had recognized her work with their Distinguished Service Award. At 36 years old, Maya Richardson was exactly where she'd worked to be respected in her field, trusted by her patients, and financially secure enough to provide the life she'd never had growing up. She'd been raised by a single mother in South Chicago, watched her mom work 3 jobs to keep them afloat, and promised herself she'd build something different. She'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, and her entire 20s to her education and career. Now finally, she was about to become a mother herself. That Thursday evening, Maya had worked a half day at the hospital, finishing patient rounds and reviewing charts before heading home at 3 p.m. Her due date was still 5 days away, but she'd packed her hospital bag weeks earlier, obsessively organized as always. At 5:15 p.m., she'd felt the first real contraction, distinct from the Braxton Hicks contractions she'd been having for weeks. By 5:45, they were regular. By 6:20, they were 3 minutes apart, intense enough that she had to stop moving and breathe through them. She'd called her OB-GYN colleague, Dr. Sarah Chen, who was on call that evening and expecting her. "Get here soon," Sarah had said. "First babies don't usually come this fast, but you're already in active labor." Maya had grabbed her bag, locked her house, and gotten into her car. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, the only clothes that still fit comfortably. Her hospital badge, which she'd forgotten to remove from her rearview mirror that morning, swayed as she started the engine. Her medical license was in her wallet in her purse on the passenger seat. Her birth plan, printed and highlighted, sat in the overnight bag. She looked like what she was, a professional woman, a physician, a mother, to be trying to get to the hospital to safely deliver her daughter. She'd done nothing illegal, nothing wrong, nothing that should have attracted police attention beyond driving 13 miles over the speed limit on an empty highway. But to Officer Thomas Garrett, Maya Richardson's urgency looked like guilt. Her pain looked like deception. Her medical emergency looked like a convenient excuse. And he decided to do something about it. Officer Thomas Garrett was 38 years old. He'd been a patrol officer with the Denver Police Department for 11 years, assigned to District 6, which covered the highway corridor between southern Denver and downtown. He was experienced, decorated with several commendations for traffic enforcement, and deeply convinced that most people who claimed emergencies were lying to avoid tickets. His supervisors described him as thorough, but sometimes lacking in empathy. His arrest reports used phrases like "subject claimed" and "alleged emergency" with suspicious frequency. In 11 years, Garrett had compiled a record that should have raised immediate concerns: 14 complaints. 14. 9 of them involved allegations of excessive force bias or refusing to recognize legitimate emergencies involving people of color. 4 had been sustained, resulting in written reprimands and mandatory de-escalation training that Garrett attended but never internalized. The other 10 had been closed with findings of no policy violation, despite witness statements, body camera footage, and medical documentation contradicting Garrett's reports. Garrett had a pattern. He responded with skepticism and aggression to any situation where a person of color claimed an emergency or medical crisis that interfered with his enforcement priorities. A Hispanic man having a diabetic emergency on the side of the highway was detained for 20 minutes while Garrett checked for warrants, ignoring the man's medical alert bracelet and his girlfriend's pleas to call an ambulance. A black teenager having an asthma attack in a car was ordered to step out and complete a field sobriety test before Garrett finally allowed his mother to drive him to urgent care. An Asian woman going into anaphylactic shock after a bee sting was told she was overreacting and needed to calm down before Garrett radioed for medical assistance. 7 minutes after she'd first asked him to call 911, the pattern was clear. The documentation was extensive, but somehow Garrett remained on patrol, racking up traffic citations and commendations for meeting enforcement quotas. When Garrett clocked a silver Honda Accord doing 58 in a 45 zone at 6:38 p.m., his mind immediately locked on a standard procedure traffic stop, license check, citation. The fact that the car had its hazard lights on meant nothing. The fact that it was heading directly toward the hospital meant nothing. In Garrett's world, speeders made excuses, and his job was to cut through the bullshit and write tickets. He pulled up behind the Honda, activated his lights, and watched as the driver, a black woman, he noted, slowed down but took nearly 30 seconds to pull over. In Garrett's mind, that delay confirmed suspicion. She's stalling, hiding something, getting her story straight. The car finally stopped on the shoulder. Garrett approached with his hand near his weapon. Standard procedure, he'd say later, though body camera footage would show his aggressive posture was anything but standard. He reached the driver's window and looked inside. Maya Richardson was in the middle of a contraction when Officer Garrett reached her window. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, her face contorted in pain, her breathing rapid and shallow. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She could only try to survive the wave of agony that felt like her body was tearing itself apart. Garrett rapped on the window with his knuckles. "Hard, Mom. You need to step out of the vehicle." Maya couldn't respond. The contraction was peaking, the worst pain she'd ever felt, and she'd delivered babies for 11 years, so she knew exactly what was happening to her body. Her cervix was dilating. Her daughter was descending. She was in active labor, progressing fast, and this officer was treating her like a criminal. The contraction finally subsided. Maya lowered the window, gasping, "I'm in labor. I'm having contractions. My water broke." Garrett's expression didn't change. He'd heard every excuse. People claimed heart attacks, strokes, dying relatives. He didn't buy any of it. "Step out of the vehicle now or I'll remove you." Maya felt panic rising. She was 3 miles from the hospital. Her contractions were 3 minutes apart. Her OB-GYN was waiting. She needed medical care, not a traffic stop. "Officer, I'm a doctor. I need to get to the hospital. My contractions are 3 minutes apart. I'm about to have my baby." Garrett leaned down, looking into the car. He saw a black woman in casual clothes. No visible medical emergency. Nothing that looked like labor in his limited understanding. "I don't care if you're a doctor. You were speeding. License and registration." Maya reached for her purse with shaking hands. Another contraction was building. She could feel it, that low, deep pressure that signaled she had maybe 2 minutes before the next wave hit. She pulled out her wallet, fumbling for her driver's license and medical license. "I'm going to the hospital to deliver my baby. This is a medical emergency. Here's my medical license. I'm Dr. Maya Richardson, OB-GYN at Denver General." She held both licenses out the window. Garrett glanced at them, his skepticism hardening into dismissal. "That's what they all say. Get out of the car." This is where bias becomes impenetrable. Officer Garrett had stopped a speeding car. When the driver claimed a medical emergency, his training should have prompted immediate verification and assistance. But Garrett didn't see a physician in active labor. He saw a black woman making an excuse, using professional credentials that must be fake or exaggerated to avoid a ticket. Every piece of evidence, the hospital badge, the medical license, the visible distress, was filtered through his assumption that she was lying. Maya's voice rose, desperation breaking through her professional composure. "I'm Dr. Maya Richardson. I literally deliver babies for a living and I'm about to have mine. Please just let me go." Garrett pulled out his citation pad. "Sure you are. Out of the car now." Maya knew what was happening. She'd lived as a black woman in America for 36 years. She'd been followed in stores, questioned in her own hospital, pulled over for, matching a description. She knew this officer wasn't going to listen, wasn't going to help, wasn't going to see her as a human being in crisis. She also knew she had maybe 30 minutes before her daughter arrived, whether she was in a delivery room or not. And if she was going to deliver in a car on the side of the highway, she needed medical help. "I'm not getting out of the car. I'm in labor. I'm going to the hospital. If you don't believe me, call Denver General and ask for Dr. Sarah Chen in labor and delivery. She's expecting me." Garrett's jaw tightened. Non-compliance, refusal to follow lawful orders. This had just escalated from a traffic stop to an arrest. "Last chance. Get out or I'm removing you." Another contraction hit. Maya doubled over, crying out despite herself. The pain was blinding, all-consuming, radiating from her abdomen down through her legs. She felt pressure, intense, downward pressure that every fiber of her medical training recognized as crowning. Her daughter's head was engaged. This baby was coming soon. Garrett saw a woman yelling, refusing orders, possibly on drugs or having a mental health crisis. He opened the car door. "Do you think officers should face consequences for arresting women in active labor? Drop your answer below. I'm placing you under arrest for failure to comply with a lawful order and obstruction." Maya was still in the grip of the contraction, unable to speak, unable to move. Garrett grabbed her arm and pulled. The pain of being yanked forward while her body was contracting sent shockwaves through her. She screamed. A passing motorist stopped 50 feet ahead with his own flashers on after witnessing the stop, got out of his car and started walking toward them. "Officer, she's clearly in distress! She needs medical help!" Garrett ignored him. He pulled Maya from the car, her legs barely supporting her weight as the contraction continued. She was crying now, not from fear but from pain so overwhelming that her vision was starting to blur. "I'm in labor. My baby is coming. Please, I need a hospital." Garrett spun her around and pulled her arms behind her back. The handcuffs clicked shut, tight, deliberate, cutting into her wrists. Maya felt wetness running down her legs and realized with horror that more amniotic fluid was leaking out. She was soaking her yoga pants, her shoes, standing on the side of a highway in handcuffs, while her body tried to push her daughter into the world. The motorist pulled out his phone and started recording. "This is Ronan. She needs help." Another car stopped. A woman got out, horrified. "Oh my God, she's in labor! Call an ambulance!" Garrett radioed for backup, ignoring the growing crowd. He walked Maya toward his patrol car, her gait awkward and shuffling as another contraction began building. "You're going to the station for processing." Maya was past words. She was in survival mode now, her medical training the only thing keeping her conscious. She was experiencing precipitous labor. Fast, intense, dangerous if not managed properly. She needed to be on her back. She needed medical monitoring. She needed someone who knew what they were doing. Instead, she was being pushed into the back of a police car. "Please, please, I'm begging you. My baby is coming right now." Garrett closed the door. Officer Garrett radioed dispatch as he walked to the driver's seat. "Dispatch, this is Unit 634. I've got one in custody for obstruction. En route to District 6 for processing." The dispatcher's voice came back, "Routine. Copy 634. Any medical needed." Garrett glanced back at Maya, who was writhing in the back seat, clearly in agony. "Negative. Subject claims to be in labor, but he didn't finish." Maya screamed. Not a cry of pain, but a guttural, primal scream that every person who's ever been present for childbirth recognizes instantly. The scream of pushing. The scream of a baby about to be born. The motorist who'd been recording ran up to Garrett's window and pounded on it. "She's having the baby right now! You need to get an ambulance here now!" Garrett hesitated. For the first time, doubt crept into his certainty. He got out and opened the back door. Maya was on her side, her knees pulled up, her hands still cuffed behind her back, her face a mask of terror and pain. "The baby's coming. I can feel crowning. You need to get these cuffs off me right now." Garrett stared. He could see the wetness soaking the back seat. He could hear the change in her breathing. And for the first time in 20 minutes, he realized he might have made a catastrophic mistake. He called dispatch again, his voice finally carrying urgency. "Dispatch, I need an ambulance at my location immediately. Subject is actively giving birth. Copy. Ambulance en route ETA 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Maya knew she didn't have 8 minutes. She'd delivered enough precipitous births to know that once crowning started, the baby could arrive in 2 or 3 pushes. She needed these handcuffs off. She needed to be able to move, to position herself, to catch her own baby if necessary. "Take the cuffs off. I need to deliver my baby." Garrett finally unlocked the handcuffs. Maya's hands came free, and she immediately shifted position, pulling down her yoga pants with shaking hands. She was right. She could feel her daughter's head, right there, ready to emerge with the next contraction. The woman who'd stopped approached the car, her voice gentle. "I'm a nurse. Can I help?" Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm an OB-GYN. I know what to do. I just need someone to help me catch her." The nurse, her name was Patricia, a labor and delivery nurse at a different hospital who happened to be driving home, climbed into the back seat next to Maya. She took one look at the situation and immediately took charge. "Okay, doctor, you know what to do. Next contraction you push, I'll support the head." The contraction came. Maya pushed, her hands braced against the front seat, her entire body focused on the most important work she'd ever done. She felt her daughter's head emerge, felt Patricia's hands guiding the delivery, felt the relief of the head being born. One more, shoulders next. Maya gathered herself, breathed, and with the next contraction, pushed again. She felt the shoulders rotate, felt her daughter slip into Patricia's waiting hands, felt the sudden release as 7 pounds 2 ounces of perfect baby girl entered the world in the back of a police car on the side of Interstate 25. Patricia lifted the baby onto Maya's chest. The infant's cry was strong, immediate, beautiful. Maya wrapped her arms around her daughter, sobbing, relief, joy, trauma, rage, all of it pouring out at once. "You did it. She's perfect." The ambulance arrived 6 minutes later. Paramedics found a newborn girl crying on her mother's chest in the back of a patrol car, with a nurse holding a clean delivery and Officer Garrett standing outside looking like he'd just witnessed his own career implode in real time. Within 3 hours, the video had exploded across social media. The motorist who'd recorded the traffic stop had uploaded it to Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. The footage showed everything. Maya identifying herself as a doctor, showing her medical license, being pulled from the car while clearly in labor, being handcuffed and forced into a police cruiser, screaming as she gave birth. Denver cop arrests black OB-GYN in active labor, forces her to deliver baby in back of patrol car. Video shows officer ignoring doctor's pleas during medical emergency. Baby born in handcuffs, physician arrested while going to hospital to deliver her own baby. The entire incident caught on camera. The outrage was immediate and volcanic. The American Medical Association issued a statement condemning the arrest. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists called for criminal charges against Officer Garrett. Civil rights organizations demanded immediate termination and federal prosecution. Medical boards across the country circulated the video as an example of racial bias endangering maternal health. Denver General Hospital, where Maya worked, released a statement. Dr. Maya Richardson is a highly respected member of our medical staff. What happened to her is unconscionable. We stand with Dr. Richardson and demand full accountability. Officer Garrett was placed on immediate administrative leave within 4 hours of the incident. An internal affairs investigation was launched that same night. The Denver Police Department issued a brief statement that the incident was under review and couldn't comment on ongoing investigations. But the damage was done. The video showed a black woman, a physician, identifying herself, showing credentials, begging for help while in active labor, and being arrested anyway. It showed her handcuffed while her body was trying to birth her child. It showed her screaming in a police car while Officer Garrett stood outside, unmoved, waiting for backup. 2 days later, Patricia, the nurse who'd helped deliver Maya's daughter, gave an interview to local news. "I've delivered hundreds of babies in my career. I've never seen anything like this." Dr. Richardson was in active labor. It was obvious. Any trained observer could see it. That officer chose not to see it because of who she was. Should officers face automatic termination after forcing pregnant women to give birth in custody? Let me know what you think. Maya Richardson retained attorneys from the ACLU and a prominent civil rights firm within a week. The lawsuit was filed 3 weeks after her daughter's birth. It named Officer Thomas Garrett, his supervisor Sergeant Daniel Cruz for failure to properly train and supervise, the Denver Police Department for systemic failures in recognizing medical emergencies, and the city and county of Denver. The claims were extensive and devastating. Unlawful arrest without probable cause, violation of Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable seizure, violation of 14th Amendment rights to bodily autonomy, racial profiling, discrimination, racial dissi failure, to prohibit civil rights statutes, intensification of emotional stress related needs, "14 complaints over 11 years, 9 involving people of color claiming medical emergencies that Garrett dismissed. 4 sustained. 4 instances of mandatory training that produced 0 behavior change. A pattern so clear that a first-year law student could have spotted it. The city's attorneys reviewed the case and reached an immediate conclusion: indefensible. The video was everywhere. Medical experts lined up to testify. The FBI had opened a civil rights investigation. The Justice Department was reviewing the department's pattern and practice. There was no viable defense. The city settled 8 months later for $73 million, one of the largest civil rights settlements in Colorado history. The breakdown dealt of $50 million to Dr. Maya Richardson for pain and suffering, lost wages, emotional distress, and punitive damages, tore $15 million to a trust for her daughter for emotional distress and potential long-term effects of precipitous birth, trauma of $8 million for medical monitoring and health treatment, and mental health reform, including immediate medical evaluation for a pregnant person in custody with 5 or more plants involving pamelamopausum. The political apology from Thomas Garrett was terminated 6 months where Thomas Garrett was terminated 6 with certain also pulling a secret and policy default The termination letter was final and comprehensive. Officer Garrett arrested a licensed physician during a medical emergency, ignored clear signs of active labor, refused to verify credentials that were presented to him, and proceeded with an unlawful arrest despite multiple witnesses alerting him to the situation's severity. He forced Dr. Richardson to deliver her child while handcuffed in the back of a patrol car, creating an imminent risk to both mother and infant. This conduct violates every standard of professional policing, human decency, and departmental policy. His employment is terminated immediately, effective today. Garrett's name was entered into the National Desertification Index, ending his law enforcement career at 38 years old. He attempted to appeal through the police union. The union reviewed the body camera footage, the video from witnesses, and the medical documentation, and withdrew their support. Garrett released a brief statement through an attorney. "I regret the outcome of this incident." He never apologized. Dr. Maya Richardson testified at a city council hearing on police reform 3 months after giving birth to her daughter, Amara. "I'm a physician with 11 years of experience delivering babies. I've delivered over 2,000 children. I know what active labor looks like because I've guided thousands of women through it." She paused, her voice steady but carrying the weight of trauma. On September 24th, I was in active labor. My contractions were 3 minutes apart. My water had broken. I could feel my daughter crowning. I showed Officer Garrett my medical license. I told him I was a doctor. I begged him to let me get to the hospital. None of it mattered. Another pause. The council chamber was completely silent. 14 complaints in 11 years. 9 of them involving people of color claiming medical emergencies. 4 of them sustained. And Officer Garrett was still on patrol, still making traffic stops, still given the authority to make decisions about people's lives. That's not bad luck. That's not a few mistakes. That's a pattern your department ignored until it nearly killed me and my daughter. Her voice strengthened, carrying clear into the microphones. The city paid $73 million. That's accountability, I suppose. Officer Garrett was fired. That's consequences. But the $73 million doesn't undo the trauma of giving birth in handcuffs in the back of a police car. It doesn't erase the terror of thinking my daughter might die because an officer didn't believe I was human enough to tell the truth. She looked directly at the police chief. I'm a doctor. I'm an attorney. I have credentials, resources, education, privilege that many people don't have. And none of it protected me from an officer who saw a black woman and assumed I was lying. If this can happen to me, with my MNJD, my hospital badge, my medical license in his hands, what happens to the pregnant teenager pulled over on her way to the ER? What happens to the undocumented woman having a miscarriage? What happens to the people who don't have lawyers on speed dial and 73 million settlements? The room remained silent. That's the question we should be asking. Should racial profiling during medical emergencies trigger automatic federal civil rights investigations? Drop your answer. This wasn't just about one traffic stop or one officer's catastrophic judgment. This was about a system that allowed Thomas Garrett to accumulate 14 complaints over 11 years and remain on patrol. A system that documented a clear pattern. Officer dismisses medical emergencies involving people of color and responded with training sessions that produced zero behavior change. Garrett's disciplinary record told a story his supervisors filed away but never acted on. 14 complaints. 9 involving medical emergencies, 4 sustained. Each one documented, each one reviewed, each one resulting in a note in his personnel file and a training certificate, and then nothing. No removal from patrol, no psychological evaluation, no meaningful intervention. The department treated each incident in isolation, never connecting the dots, never acknowledging that this was a pattern of an officer who could not see people of color as deserving of basic compassion. Officer Garrett's career is over. That's justice. The city paid $73 million. That's accountability. Denver PD implemented sweeping reforms. That's progress. But settlements don't undo trauma. Terminations don't erase the memory of giving birth in handcuffs while an officer who swore to protect and serve forced you to deliver your child in the back of his patrol car because he couldn't imagine a black woman might be telling the truth about a medical emergency. The real question is, what changes now? Do departments finally remove officers after 5 complaints instead of 14? Do supervisors finally connect the dots at complaint 3 when the pattern becomes obvious? Do we finally train officers to recognize that when someone says, "I'm in labor," maybe, just maybe, they're in labor? Because if we don't fix the system that kept Garrett on patrol despite 14 documented failures, if we don't address the culture that taught him to see a black physician's medical license as a prop and her pain as performance, then we're just waiting for the next officer, the next victim, the next baby born in a place where no baby should ever have to enter the world. Comment if you believe this should be law. Any officer who arrests a pregnant person during a medical emergency faces automatic termination and criminal charges for reckless endangerment. And if you think these stories need to be told, if you believe accountability starts with awareness and change starts with pressure, then hit that subscribe button. We're not stopping. We're going to keep exposing officers who abuse their authority. We're going to keep demanding better training, better oversight, and actual consequences for patterns of discrimination that endanger lives. We're going to keep fighting for Dr. Maya Richardson, for baby Amara, for every person who's been told their emergency isn't real, their pain isn't valid, their humanity isn't visible because of the color of their skin. This isn't just about one officer or one physician. It's about all of us and the world we're willing to accept when someone with a badge decides that their assumptions matter more than someone else's life.